You know how everyone gets super excited for the 4th of July? With all the bright fireworks, the fun parades, and delicious picnics, it's a huge birthday party for America. But what if I told you a little secret? What if the decision to have that birthday party happened 2 days earlier? Imagine your own birthday. Sometimes the most exciting part is the day you're going to have a party, even before you send out invitations. July 2nd is kind of like that for American independence. It's the super important, almost secret beginning to the whole big celebration that we all know and love. So, what was happening on this mysterious July 2nd, way back in the year 1776? Picture a big room. It's summer in Philadelphia, so it's probably very, very warm, and remember, there was no air conditioning back then. Inside this room were a group of very important men. They were called the Continental Congress. These men were like the team captains for the 13 American colonies. They had a giant, enormous, incredibly serious decision to make. This decision was so big it would make the King of England, who lived far across the vast ocean, extremely unhappy. They were talking about freedom. These leaders, men like John Hancock, Benjamin Franklin, and Thomas Jefferson, had been discussing and debating for many, many weeks. Some were probably a little bit scared about what might happen. Others were feeling incredibly brave and ready for a change. And some, perhaps, were just wishing for a tall, cool glass of lemonade to sip on during the long, hot days. But on that specific day, July 2nd, 1776, they finally did it. They took a vote. And they voted yes. Yes to being free. Yes to being independent from Great Britain. It was a huge, monumental moment. One of those important leaders, a man named John Adams, was so incredibly thrilled by this vote, he would later become the second president of the United States. He quickly wrote a letter to his wife Abigail to share the amazing news. He told her that July 2nd would be celebrated by future generations of Americans forever and ever. He imagined people celebrating with big shows, fun games, exciting sports, ringing bells, and even bright bonfires lighting up the night sky. He truly believed that day, July 2nd, would be remembered as America's most important birthday. He was so sure of it, he probably felt like dancing. So, what did this big voting for independence on July 2nd actually mean for everyone? Well, try to imagine if you had a very, very bossy older cousin who lived far away. This cousin kept telling you what games you had to play, what chores you had to do, and even took some of your allowance money without asking. The American colonies felt a bit like that. They felt that Great Britain and its ruler King George III was being that bossy cousin. The king and the British government made lots of rules that the colonists thought were unfair. They made them pay taxes on everyday things like tea, sugar, and paper, but the colonists didn't have anyone to speak for them when these tax rules were made. The leaders gathered in the Continental Congress were basically saying, "We've had enough of this. It's not fair." By voting for independence on that important day, July 2nd, they were sending a very clear, very loud message directly to King George III. That message was something like, "Excuse us, Mr. King, but we're not going to listen to your rules anymore. We're going to be our own bosses now. We are starting our very own new team, and it's going to be called the United States of America." This was an incredibly brave and daring thing to do. The king was one of the most powerful rulers in the whole world, and he had a massive army and navy. This decision made on July 2nd wasn't just a tiny little change in plans. No way! It was a gigantic, world-shaking, history-making event. It was the moment the colonies officially decided to cut their ties with Great Britain. Think of it like learning to ride a bicycle. First you have training wheels to help you balance, and someone is holding on. But then comes the day you say, "I'm ready," and you take the training wheels off. It might feel a little wobbly and scary at first, but then it's so exciting because you can ride all by yourself, wherever you want to go. The colonies were saying, "We're ready to ride on our own now." This crucial vote for independence was the actual legal act of separation. It was the official "we're breaking up" moment with Great Britain. Before July 2nd, even though they were arguing a lot and were very unhappy, the colonies were still technically considered part of the British Empire. But on July 2nd, 1776, when that vote passed, the deal was done. The resolution for independence was approved. It was a serious commitment, like saying "I do" at a wedding, but instead of marrying a person, they were unmarrying a king and marrying the exciting idea of freedom and self-government. These were brave people chasing a big dream. Now, you might be scratching your head and wondering something. If July 2nd was such a super-duper important day, the day they actually voted for freedom, why don't we set off fireworks on July 2nd? Why isn't the big national holiday with parades and barbecues? Well, that's where the story gets a little bit like a puzzle, with a few tricky pieces that need to fit together just right. Even though the huge, life-changing vote for independence happened on July 2nd, the news didn't instantly spread everywhere like a viral video does today. There was no internet, no television, no smartphones, not even super-fast mail delivery. Back in 1776, news traveled very, very slowly. Usually, important messages were carried by brave riders on horseback or by ships sailing across the ocean, which could take many weeks or even months. So, not everyone in the colonies, and certainly not everyone in the rest of the world, found out about this incredible decision right away on July 2nd. The leaders in the Continental Congress knew that they needed to do more than just vote. They needed to explain they were taking such a huge step. They wanted all the colonists and the whole world to understand their reasons for wanting to be a separate, independent nation. So, for quite some time, they had been working on a very special, very important document. It was a formal announcement. Can you guess what this famous paper was called? You got it! It was the Declaration of Independence. Thomas Jefferson was the main writer of this amazing document, but others like Benjamin Franklin and John Adams helped to edit and perfect it. This declaration explained all the reasons why the colonies believed they had the right to be free. It was like writing a very long, very polite, but also very firm letter to King George III, saying, "Here are all the reasons why we are breaking up with you, and we think these are very good reasons." This important document, the Declaration of Independence, wasn't quite finished and ready to be approved on July 2nd, the day of the big vote. After they made the decision to be independent, the members of Congress spent the next couple of days, July 3rd and July 4th, carefully reading, discussing, and making small changes to the wording of this big announcement. They wanted every single word to be just right, to perfectly express their hopes and dreams for their new country. It was like after you decide to throw a huge birthday party, that was the July 2nd vote, you then need to design and write the party invitations perfectly so everyone understands how awesome the party will be. That was editing the declaration. So if the giant decision, the actual vote for independence, really happened on July 2nd, why do we celebrate with loud bangs and bright lights on July 4th? It all comes down to that incredibly important piece of paper, the Declaration of Independence. When the Continental Congress finally approved the exact wording of the Declaration on July 4th, 1776, that was the version they decided to sign, print, and send out to all the colonies and to the world. That date, July 4th, was printed right at the top of the document. It became the official public announcement of America's birth as a new nation. Think of it this way. July 2nd was the day the colonies quietly decided among themselves, yes, let's become a new country. We're going to do it. It was the internal decision. But July 4th was the day they stood on a mountaintop, metaphorically speaking, and shouted it out loud for everyone to hear, with a beautifully written explanation in their hands. The Declaration of Independence, with its powerful and famous words about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, became the most recognized symbol of American freedom. And because July 4th was the date on that cherished symbol, that's the day that stuck in people's hearts and minds. Even John Adams, the man who was so sure that July 2nd would be the day everyone remembered, eventually understood why July 4th became the big celebration. He knew how important the Declaration itself was, and over many years, celebrating on July 4th just became the tradition. It's quite funny how history sometimes works out, isn't it? A little detail, like which date gets printed on an important paper, can change how we remember and celebrate huge events for hundreds and hundreds of years. So, while July 2nd was like the secret, important handshake, July 4th became the big, joyful public high five for American independence. So, the very next time you're oohing and ahhing at the spectacular fireworks lighting up the summer sky on the 4th of July, you can share a cool secret with your friends and family. You can tell them that the vote, the super brave decision to declare independence, happened 2 days earlier on July 2nd. It's like knowing an awesome behind-the-scenes fact about your favorite superhero movie. Now you're in on the secret history of America's birthday. And knowing that little bit more makes celebrating freedom and bravery even more special and exciting, don't you think? Happy, almost early birthday, America, from all of us.